Fine. Hello, beautiful shag people. Hi, everybody. My name is Artemis, and I'm gonna do a little quickie mini workshop today about sex beyond penetration. So, exploring what sex can mean when we expand it outside the kind of most strict traditional boundaries. So, if you're watching and you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And then this is going to get uploaded, so maybe some of you are watching years and years from now. Hello, future people. Okay. I want to start thinking about sex really broadly and just ask, like, what is sex? Like, when does sex start and end? And what do we consider sex? Like, we all kind of have these stories and images around what sex is and means. And I'm kind of curious, maybe the people here can even help answer what they think sex is.
Connection.
Okay, Sam says it's when you make a connection. It's like when you shake someone's hand, then like you start having sex.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Just like that. Okay, all right, that's Sam's thoughts. What else? Any other thoughts on what sex?
The Seinfeld definition is when the nipple appears.
When the nipple makes its first appearance. That is true. That is the Seinfeld appearance. Yeah, that's a pretty good definition. But I think you could be having sex with no nipples exposed. It's not to poke holes in the logic of renowned sexologist Jerry Seinfeld. I think, we're taught this idea of like the bases, like, there's first base and then there's second base. And then I guess somewhere in between second and third base, maybe sex starts, or maybe it starts at first. I don't really know what the rules there are. There's definitely a lot of like this. I've done this gesture a lot in like coming up on this workshop, trying to talk about what I'm talking about. So this sex is fine, great. A lot of people do it, from what I can tell. Me, even sometimes. I know I'm wearing a Spider-Man shirt, but I have had sex. This is, the technical term is coitus. So when we're having a penis entering a vagina, that's like coitus. And the kind of most traditional, like really shorthand definition, I think that is what a lot of people think of. Is they're like, oh, sex is like when this happens, when we're having coitus. But sex is so much bigger than that. We are not just reproductive photosites on this ocean floor. We're complex people with complex, matrices of trauma and experience. And we have sex for all kinds of different reasons. Real quick, masturbation. Is masturbation sex?
Yes. No.
Yes, no,
Yes,
maybe. We have a yes and a no and a shrug. So we're a hung jury. I think it definitely is under the umbrella. What about orgasm? Does orgasm need to happen for sex to have happened? Is it an essential part of sex? We're getting some strong head shakes, but I think these are things worth challenging. These are things worth thinking about when we think about our definitions of like, the kind of, there's a playwright who wrote this short essay about how like the structure we're taught in school as like the story structure reflects perfectly like the male penis having testosterone majority orgasm story that we're told, right? Like there's like initiating action and then rising action and then a climax and then a steep drop off and then you smoke a cigarette and fall asleep. And like that structure does not reflect a lot of the kinds of sex people are having. There's people writing things. Let's go. Yes. Okay. I think chemistry is the beginnings of sex. It's possible to have such a strong sexual attraction and chemistry with someone that sex can take almost any form. Thank you, Carlito Sway 170. You cut ahead in my notes. You did it. You nailed it. Okay. So why do we have sex? We already said connection, which I think is a big part of it. Obviously, pleasure is in the soup of why we might have sex. Feels good, hopefully. It can be a way to connect with a partner, it can be a way to connect with yourself, it can be a way to connect with 2 partners or 6 partners. If you go to the other workshop, right? Isn't that what Lola's doing right now?
Yeah.
We do workshops at the Moxie, and there's one right now called like
Living the poly life.
living the poly life. Oh, that's something different. When's the 2 sums, more sums, 3 sums, 4 sums?
Oh.
That's a good title. That's what it should be.
February 29th.
Okay, February 29th. There's
The more the merrier.
The More the Merrier is the name of the workshop. And it's on February 29th, and it's all about like multiple people arrangements. Anyway, little plug. Also, sex can be a way for us to explore trust, right? It's very vulnerable, maybe, to share ourselves with somebody in this way, or to create conditions that make us vulnerable. And there's a lot of intimacy in that, right? So if we're thinking about sex as going beyond coitus or beyond penetrative sex, who would need this? I mean, obviously, some people might just have a preference. That's allowed. You can just not like it. You can just, maybe it doesn't feel good. Maybe it doesn't work with your anatomy. Maybe your anatomy doesn't work with your partner's anatomy. Maybe you have just on a physiological level, maybe you have erectile dysfunction and it's not viable for you in your current biochemical situation, which is always changing throughout our whole lives, to kind of have like coitus in that traditional way. Maybe you're pregnant or you're postpartum, or obviously you can have sex during both of those times, but especially postpartum, maybe it's not comfortable, or maybe you had surgery, or who knows, there's some reason. Maybe especially with anal sex, there's a lot of discomfort. It's just not comfortable. And for some people, they can, work and train and, get to a place where it becomes pleasurable, but sex shouldn't always feel like work necessarily, right? We can just not. If it's not feeling like what we want, it's okay. Also, like pelvic floor issues, like we have these lovely, we have a few different brands. That one's on the floor. We have some like Benoit balls, which are one way, thank you, of training and strengthening pelvic floor for people with vaginas. Don't put these in your butt and never see them again. And so that can be a way to help with some of that. Also, there's like whole disciplines of pelvic floor PTs and devices that are used to massage the pelvic floor. It's very common. There's like any variety of reasons, including like psychosomatic, but also like there's STIs that can cause discomfort, and there's like musculature issues, right? That can cause discomfort in your pelvic floor. Maybe you are unable to orgasm for any variety of reasons, and so kind of using penetration as like the only means of like connection might feel unfulfilling. I mean, it's common that people can't at all ever, and that's just their body and that's their situation. But also if you're on medication, if you're on SSRIs, it can make it more difficult. If you're on antidepressants, there's some hands being raised. I'll join that. And then also like HRT, like hormone replacement therapy, if you're trans, or even if you're not trans, if you're on hormone replacement therapy because you had cancer and had your testes removed. There's like a million gajillion reasons why somebody might be in a situation where the kind of 101 version of sex might not be accessible to them. More kind of mental things would be like, obviously a lot of people experience sexual trauma, and for them it might not be comfortable to engage in sex in the way that maybe they experienced trauma, or things like that. Also, people might just have shame, might have shame about their bodies, might have shame about sex, might have shame around their body image. Maybe they're just not feeling good in themselves, and to be vulnerable with somebody in that way that's so like, like your most secret areas like all involved. It's a lot. It can be a big ask. And then, also along those same lines, like, if you're somebody who's experiencing some gender dysphoria or you're feeling uncomfortable, kind of moving sex away from genitalia-centered play can be a relief, right? Queer couples know this. Queer couples know a lot of this inherently because the script of coitus is kind of out the window. Somebody said, people differentiate like penetrative sex from these other, like masturbation or making out or oral or phone sex. They might not consider as sex. Yeah, I agree. That's a lot of what I'm saying. Like, I think that is a limiting definition and deprives us of opportunities to connect with ourselves and our partners that maybe we wouldn't explore if we're only thinking about penetrative sex as like being sex. Another big reason you might not want to have penetrative sex is pregnancy risk. I mean, that's a huge like anxiety that if you don't want to have in your life, you can remove. Or maybe you're just like off birth control for a minute, or maybe you're afraid of getting somebody pregnant and you don't want to do that, or you're concerned about STI transmission, and maybe you're polyamorous and you're fluid bonded with one partner, but you don't want to be with other people, but you want to connect with them. Like, I feel like I've listed a lot of ways. I think it's clear that there's a lot of reasons why you might not want to have penetrative sex. So what do we do? What are we supposed to do? I feel like I'm selling the idea. Like, now that I've convinced you that we're not going to have that kind of sex, what can we do for fun? So obviously there's lots of stimulation that can happen externally. I pulled maybe the most iconic external stimulation toy, now available in Papa, Mama, and baby sizes. The Magic Wand is a vibrator that is great for external play. You can touch anywhere on anyone with this and give that vibration-y sensation. Obviously, also there we have our hands, we have our mouths. There's a lot of ways to engage with somebody that is still involving the genitals. You can use grinding toys. You can fraught. Do we know what fraughting is? Ooh, I love a little vocab lesson. Do you know what fraughting is?
I thought you were going to say tribbing.
Tribbing is in the same category.
Yeah. So
tribbing, more commonly known as scissoring, short for tribadism, is a little bit of this. A little bit of this one right here. And it is about stimulating two vulvics against each other. And frotting, or short for frottage, which is derived from the French word to rub, is when two penises are doing the foxtrot. I was really on something tonight. I'm sorry. Okay. So that the frot trot, if you will. So those are some more like genital-centric ways. Obviously, there's no shortage of shapes and flavors and sizes of vibrators. Also, I want to give a quick shout out to the Satisfier toy that is a wand vibrator that's designed to be used with a penis. It has a little bit of a shape there to kind of hold it in place, but inside there is just a vibrating head like a wand. So that's another way. Like, this is not dependent on you being able to achieve orgasm or erection to receive stimulation. So kind of a neat thing that people might not think about. Come on. Do I still have, how quickly we forget? How do I turn this off? I got it. Outside of genital-centric play, even if it's external, kink, the whole world of kink is a big, beautiful world of leather and latex, And a lot of it has nothing to do with genitals, right? Impact play, there's obviously can involve genitals, bless your heart, but doesn't have to, right? We can engage in really... Lola was calling for some reason. We can engage in, really intense, deep, connected, trust, risk, play with our partner, right? Without any genital involvement, without any STI risk, or much reduced STI risk. And so, that's one way to connect and have sex. A impact scene does not need to be, like these impact toys don't need to be like a little appetizer to then you're going to go engage in penetrative sex, right? It can be a standalone experience that you can really curate and go through this thing. That same thing goes for like sensory play or sensory deprivation, right? We get a little blindfold going, maybe we get a little ball gag going, right? There's a lot of ways that we can like enhance the sensory experience and the sensitivity of our bodies. Little feather maybe, little tickly, little Wartenberg wheel, right? Hello. These are all tools that we can use to connect and find that intimacy and that trust, especially with power exchange like DNS dynamics. That can be a way to access that level of connection that we look for when we want to have, like we want to fulfill that, check that box of having sex, right? And the same thing, for some people, denial is like as hot as sex. Like there are people that get off on not having sex, right? And so if you're physiologically or mentally not interested or able to have penetrative sex, maybe dig a little bit into fantasy and think about like, maybe is it hot to give somebody the power of pleasure over me and then have them take that away? Like for some people that's enough. That's sex. Like it's happening and you wouldn't even know it if you walked by it on the street, and that's the beauty of it all. Yeah, I wrote, you could dirty talk. That's a nice one. Also long distance. Like you can have a whole experience with somebody without having to bump up against those barriers. I wrote foot stuff. People are into foot stuff. Go crazy. That's a great way to not have penetrative sex. And also boot stuff, like boot blacking is a rich tradition. Do you know about boot blacking? Love it. Boot blacking is from leather kink in leather culture, and it's like a boot black is a person who like polishes and cleans boots and might set up at an event or at a party and be there serving people cleaning their boots. And the kind of inherent eroticism of the power of that and this act of service, and it's hot. It's hot. I think it's hot, but some people, I'm not alone in thinking this is hot. And anyway, I only mention it as an example of expanding these definitions of like what we imagine our sex lives to look like, and releasing some of the guilt or the shame or the embarrassment of like, oh, I can't do sex the way that they taught me in 5th grade health class, and so I'm a big failure. We're more evolved than that. We're more complex than that, and we deserve pleasure and connection, and thankfully there's no shortage of ways to do that. And if you don't feel like you have any way to do that, come to Shag. Come to Shag right here in sunny Williamsburg, and we'll help you find whatever you need. And there's a discount for 10% off online if you want to buy anything I showed here today or anything else. The code is Beyond24. Beyond24. You can plug it in on the promo code part of our website, and you'll get 10% off. And I think that's it for me. And it's really it for me because this is my last day. I'm leaving Shack, and this is my last workshop and my final obligation. So, one small step for Artemis,
We're going to miss you.
but one giant leap for Trankind. Okay, goodbye, everybody.